It was one of those nights when everything felt wrong, and yet nothing seemed to change. Axel was too absorbed in his work to even notice me. He was so caught up in endless meetings and new projects that I could have been invisible, and he wouldn't have known the difference. We sat there at the dinner table, his voice a low hum in the background, talking about work and deals I couldn't care less about. I could hardly focus on his words. It wasn't the first time I'd felt this way, and I doubted it would be the last. But tonight was different. Something was stirring inside me, something I couldn't shake, and it was pulling me in a direction I never thought I'd go. I thought about Jason, Axel's son, my stepson. The moment his name crossed my mind, a heavy weight pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I glanced down the hallway where the dim light spilled from the crack under his door, and my heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to think about what had happened, what we had done, but I couldn't stop it. The memory played in my mind like an endless loop. I know it was wrong, but in that moment, I couldn't deny how it made me feel. Axel didn't know, of course. He was too busy with his work and dealing with Shay's teenage drama to notice what was happening right under his nose. But Jason was different. He brought a different energy into this house. His eyes, his presence, everything about him made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. It was intoxicating, but it was also terrifying. Suddenly, Axel's voice broke through my thoughts. "Laura, are you even listening?" He slammed his glass down on the table, causing me to snap back to reality. I forced a smile. "Yes, Axel." But I wasn't really hearing him. All I could hear was the pounding of my own heart, louder than his voice, echoing in my ears. Something was about to shift. I could feel it in my bones. Axel kept talking about work, his voice buzzing like static. But I wasn't paying attention. My mind was elsewhere. I stole a glance at Shay, who was sitting at the other end of the table, her face tired and heavy with sleep. She was only 13, but she looked like she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you to bed," I said gently, standing up and taking her hand. As we walked to her room, I tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead. "Good night, my angel," I whispered before turning to leave. But as soon as I stepped back into the hallway, that familiar weight in my chest returned. I left Axel under the bright lights of the living room, making my way to my bedroom. But the moment I shut the door, guilt crashed over me like a wave. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, flinching at the expression on my face. What had I done? Jason, Axel's son from his first marriage. 22 years old, strong and full of confidence. He was everything I shouldn't want, yet everything I craved. I could still remember the day everything changed. It all started when Jason mentioned he wanted to go to the beach. Axel, as usual, was too busy to care, so he turned to me and said, "Laura, why don't you go with Jason? Keep him company." I hesitated, but Axel was already cutting me off. "It'll be a nice change for you. Drop Shay off at school, and then head to the beach. Jason could use a little support." Jason was already standing there, his smirk a challenge I couldn't ignore. "Come on, Laura. If you don't want to go, just say so. I can go alone." On the drive to the beach, Jason was silent, but that silence felt thick with tension. Every glance I stole at him felt like an electric current running through me. When we got to the beach, the sun was scorching. I laid out a towel on the sand, pulling out my sunscreen. I always had to be careful with my sensitive skin, or I'd end up burnt in no time. Jason, ever the confident one, pulled off his shirt and stretched out on the sand. His muscular back caught my eye, and for a moment I couldn't look away. "You should relax, Laura. Isn't this supposed to be a mini vacation?" he said, his voice laced with a teasing grin. I shook my head. "Relaxing in the sun isn't really my thing," I replied, though part of me wanted to agree with him. I grabbed the sunscreen bottle, knowing I'd need help to apply it to my back. Normally, Axel would do it, but he wasn't here. I looked away from Jason, hoping he wouldn't notice. But of course, he did. "I can help you, if you want," he offered. His tone calm, but with a glint in his eyes I couldn't ignore. I hesitated. "No need," I said quickly, but my back was already starting to burn. Finally, with a reluctant sigh, I turned to him. Fine. But just my back. Jason's fingers brushed my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. He applied the sunscreen slowly, his touch firm and gentle. Each stroke made my heart race, and I felt myself trembling. Need me to go lower? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I froze, my mind screaming for me to stop him. Jason, that's enough, I said, my voice trembling as his fingers moved closer to my lower back. But he backed off, his tone casual, almost too much so. All right, just making sure you're protected. After he finished, I quickly wrapped a towel around my shoulders, trying to shake off the strange feelings swirling inside me. But Jason's gaze followed me, and I couldn't escape the tension that lingered between us. The rest of the day was a blur. But I knew deep down that something had changed, something I couldn't take back. That night, sleep came quickly, but it wasn't peaceful. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jason's face, felt his touch, heard his voice. The kiss, the way his eyes locked with mine, as if he saw right through me. The next morning, I tried to push everything away. I made breakfast, cleaned the house, and pretended like everything was normal. But the unease was still there, a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. And then I heard it, a cry of pain. Jason had slipped on the wet bathroom tiles, and I rushed to him, my heart pounding in my chest. I helped him to his room, my hands trembling as I propped him up on the bed. He looked up at me, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. We were too close. I could feel his breath, hear his heartbeat. Laura, he whispered, his voice low. I don't understand why my dad doesn't spend time with someone like you. You're beautiful and lonely. My breath caught in my throat. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. Before I could respond, he stepped closer, his nose almost touching mine. I've been drawn to you for a long time, he said softly. And just like that, everything changed. He kissed me, a soft, lingering kiss that felt like the world had stopped. I didn't know what to do. Couldn't stop it. Kissed him back, and everything blurred. My heart raced, my mind screamed, but I couldn't pull away. But then guilt flooded me. I pulled back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I grabbed my clothes, throwing them on quickly, trying to escape the chaos in my mind. I didn't know what had just happened, but I knew I couldn't forget it. From that moment on, I was a mess. Every part of me was torn between guilt and desire, and I didn't know how to fix it. I wish I could tell you the story has a happy ending, but it doesn't. Not yet, anyway, and maybe it never will. But if you're watching this, maybe you've been there. Maybe you understand. Or maybe you've felt that same pull, that same longing. If you have, please share your thoughts with me. I need to know I'm not alone in this. If you're struggling with something similar, or if you've faced a difficult situation that changed your life, leave a comment. Like this video, subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories, and let's talk. Together, we can figure this out.